Welcome to Chapman Academy on YouTube. This is a platform for you to grow and advance your research writing skills. Recommend Chapman Academy to your friends and everybody, and then you share with them so that they can also join the movement as we all grow and advance ourselves in research writing. So I've been teaching the various types of study designs that can be applied in your research methods. So today I'm going to introduce you to clinical trial, to provide you with everything that you need to know about clinical trial and how you can go about clinical trial. So in clinical trial, it is the study that is performed in people aimed at evaluating medical or surgical treatment, and then also behavioral intervention. So it is done to improve behavioral intervention and then also evaluate medical or surgical procedures, the best way that procedures can be done. And then also it is the way to find out new treatment and then also a new drug or diet that is best or the gold standard for people with a minimum risk. So that is clinical trial. So it looks out for the best way to dealing with humans with a minimum risk. So with the importance of clinical trial, it helps to discover a new treatment for disease. So we do clinical trials to discover a new treatment for disease, and then also the best way you can treat disease with less risk. And then a new way to detect, diagnose, and then reduce the development of a disease. So clinical trial can show researchers what does and then what doesn't work in humans that cannot be learned in the laboratory or in animals. So it tells what works best in humans and then what doesn't work best in humans. That study cannot be conducted in the laboratory or in animal studies. So it is able to predict the best intervention that can work with humans. And then also clinical trials are done after preclinical trials showing evidence that the intervention is safe and then it works with people. So before you can proceed with a clinical trial, you need to make sure that the preclinical trial is giving an evidence that the intervention that you are bringing up is safe and then it works best. So if you want to conduct a clinical trial and then after the preclinical trial there is no promising evidence that the intervention can work best with minimum risk, then there is no need for you to continue the clinical trials. Then you need to look for the better option that can be applied. So with preclinical trials, the first one is cell study. So let's say we want to develop a new treatment for cancer. So here we mostly get the cancer cell, then we put it in a dish, then we culture it at the laboratory, then we introduce the drug to it, and we will see how the cancer cell is going to respond to the drug. So if we see that, okay, the treatment or the drug is able to minimize the growth of the cancer cell or to shrink the cancer cells, then we can proceed to use animals. So either mouse, either pig, depending on what the study is about. Then we proceed with animals. Then we see how the drug is able to affect the cells in living organisms and how the organisms are also going to respond to the drug in living organisms. So then before we can proceed with the clinical trials. So in preclinical trials, it is done with two process, that is the cell study and then the animal study. So after the animal study, then we see that the intervention is promising, then we can introduce the intervention to humans. So the preclinical study, it gives you a lot of useful information, and then also it is a clinical trial that involves new drug, it can be a new medical device, a biological or vaccines, and then other medical treatments and procedures. That is what is being done at the preclinical stage. So the people who can conduct a clinical trial is mostly these people. That is a medical doctor who will be the principal investigator. And then I have a video on principal investigator, so you can look for it. I have a video on it. And then a medical team, which can include a nurse, a social worker, and then other health professionals. So the study can take place at the hospital, the community, the doctor's office, and then universities. And then how long the study can last depend on the type of study that you are working with. So if the study is within a 6 months period, then it means that you are going to end the clinical trials within 6 months. Then if it is 1 year, then it means that the program will end in 1 year. And then if it is more than 1 year too, then it means that it will continue until the project is over. So the reason why we conduct clinical trial, so it adds up to medical knowledge relating to the treatment, the particular treatment that you want to bring up or you want to come up. It adds up more knowledge and then insight to it, so that because when there is a new treatment or there is a new disease and then there's limited knowledge on it, it becomes very difficult to treat it and then also to tackle and then prevent the spread. But if there is enough information and knowledge about it, it is very easy to tackle and then prevent the spread. Then also bring up the best way for diagnosis. So it gives out the best way you can diagnose a disease and then make it preventable or treat it. And then also it gives preventive measures and then conditions that can be put in place in order to prevent people from getting affected with a particular disease. So that is clinical trial. So these are common reasons for clinical trial. It evaluates one or more interventions. So it can be drug, it can be medical procedure, medical device approaches, and others. So it evaluates one or more interventions to see which of them is working best among humans. And then it finds ways to prevent the development of a disease or a condition. And then it aims at identifying or diagnosing a particular disease, so that after diagnosis, then we can say that, okay, we've diagnosed this particular disease or conditions among these people, then let's see the best way that we can provide treatment to them. Then also examine methods for identifying conditions or risk factors. Yes. So by the time you are conducting your clinical trials, you'll be able to know the factors that are contributing to the development of the disease. And then explore and measure ways to improve comfort and the quality of life. Yes, because at the end of the day, we want to improve the life of the people. Then we want to know that everybody is living to the maximum standard and then with optimum help. That is the hallmark of a clinical trial. At the end of the day, everybody should live in a comfort life. So we have several phases in clinical trial, and then each phase is built on one another. So by the time you move from one phase to the another, you are building on it. You are building on it. So each phase is very important. And then each phase is designed to answer a certain question. So until you answer a particular question, you don't move to the next phase. You need to make sure that the question that you are answering, the hypothesis that you set, you've answered it before you can move to the next stage of the clinical trial. And then knowing the phase of clinical trial can give you some ideas about how much known about a treatment is being studied. So when you know that this clinical trial, we are at this phase, then you know that, okay, at this phase, we need to get into this far. So if it is a cancer treatment or if it is a drug development, so at each phase, you need to know how far you've gotten to. Are you almost to the end? Are you almost at concluding your findings? And then there are benefits and risks of conducting clinical trials. There is no study on this earth without a risk. Every study possesses a risk. But make sure that the risk is minimum risk. That will have a very little effect on the people. So that is one of the hallmark of a clinical trial, that the intervention that you are providing should give a very minimum risk on the people. So these are the phases in clinical trial. The most common phases in clinical trials are three. That is the first phase, or the phase 1, phase 2, and then the phase 3. These are the common phases in clinical trials. So the phase 1 is done to see if a new treatment is safe, and then also look for best way of giving that treatment. So it tests to see if the intervention that you are bringing, if the drug that you are bringing, is it safe to the people? That is what the first stage of clinical trials look on, and then the best way of giving it. And then also we have the phase 2. That is to test one type of condition and then how the condition responds to the new treatment. So you pick a condition and then you introduce your drug or your vaccine or your intervention to it. Then you see how the condition is going to react with your intervention. How much improvement are you going to see in the people? And then with the phase 3, it tests a new treatment if it is better than the standard treatment. So here it tests to see if your treatment that you are coming up with, is it better than the current treatment that we know. So if you see that your treatment is better than the current treatment, and then it is the one with the minimum risk, then it means that you need to go in for the new treatment because it is the best that you can get. But if you measure and then you see that your treatment is far away from the standard treatment, then there is no need for your intervention to be adopted. So in conducting clinical trials, you need to make sure that your treatment that you are bringing is of high quality and then of high standard with a very minimum risk. the phase O, which is done at emergency purpose, is done for emergency purpose. And then we have the phase 4. The phase 4 is also done after the medicine or your intervention has been passed by the FDA. So I've done a detailed lecture on the various phases. That is the phase O, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and then the phase 4. I've done a detailed lecture on them so that you'll be able to understand it best at every stage what you are expected to do. So I'll end here for today. Subscribe to Sharpman Academy on YouTube and you share with your friends so that they can also learn new things every day. Sharpman Academy is there for everybody to know something about research writing. Sharpman Academy, see you there.